everybody, my name is Carol Mack. This tutorial will help you recognize a breach and make a risk assessment to determine if PHI was compromised. The definition of breach is in subpart D. Breach means an unpermitted acquisition, access, use, or disclosure that compromises the security or privacy of PHI. The definition has a three-part test for excluding trivial events. A breach is presumed unless the entity demonstrates a low probability that PHI was compromised by assessing probability according to 4 or more factors. The original definition of breach asked whether there was a significant risk of harm to the individual. The final definition requires entities to assess the probability that PHI was compromised. The first step in the analysis is legal. Review the relevant section of the privacy rule. Next, determine if the person was doing their job. Did they access PHI in good faith, or were they snooping? Determine if the worker disclosed PHI to anyone else. Did the person inadvertently disclose PHI within the same organization? If so, make sure there were no further disclosures. If PHI was disclosed to a person not authorized to see it, you should assess the person's ability to retain the information. If there's no exclusion, then a breach is presumed unless the 4-step analysis proves otherwise. The first step is to examine the nature and extent of PHI involved. Second, examine the person who used or received PHI without authorization. Third, establish the likelihood that PHI was actually acquired or viewed. And fourth, assess the extent of mitigation already accomplished. Now we'll investigate whether a breach occurred in the town of Single Peak. Darla, Pete's daughter, is practicing for the Bike Fiesta. This is a charity event for children's health. The Bike Fiesta is sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce and merchants, including the Coffee House. All of the proceeds will be donated to Single Peak Hospital. Gail, Computer Guy's girlfriend, is a member of the hospital fundraising committee. She also works for the local newspaper.
Hey Gail, what are you doing with that spreadsheet?
I'm trying to recruit people to support the Bike Fiesta.
Are you raising funds for the hospital?
Yes, I had to sign a business associate contract to use this spreadsheet. It has names of people that might agree to help us with fundraising.
Are you calling everyone on that list?
No, we have to give individuals an opportunity to elect not to receive fundraising communications. People in this column have already opted out. But other people have volunteered to organize races and other contests. Pete has already talked to kids in Darla's classroom. He signed an authorization that allows her to disclose medical records to promote the fiesta. Did you know Darla has leukemia? Pete is helping me write a story about Darla and childhood cancer.
Great way to get donations for the hospital. We should publish this story in tomorrow's paper.
A couple of days later, Gail went to lunch at the coffee house. She had a meeting with Scarlett, the business manager. Scarlett told Gail how much she liked the story about Darla.
Could you interview more kids like her? Stories like that will bring in more sponsors.
My spreadsheet only contains fundraising information that's allowed by HIPAA. It's limited to 6 categories of data.
Maybe your friend Faye, the hospital pharmacist, could round up more people. She has contact with a lot of patients in the hospital. Look, I see your name on the hospital website. You should call her or send her an email. She could review names on the spreadsheet and suggest stories you could write.
That's a good idea. I'll send an email to Faye.
The email to Faye was puzzling. She didn't know what to think. But a few minutes later, Pete arrived with his daughter.
Hi, Pete. I heard you were the expert on HIPAA privacy.
Well, I used to manage Dr. Pruitt's medical office.
Could I get your opinion on a possible privacy breach? You know my friend Gail? She sent me a spreadsheet with names of hospital patients. It has information about Darla too. Gail asked me to identify people who could help advertise the bike fiesta.
Are you on the fundraising committee?
No, but I would like to help Gail raise money for the hospital. Do you think this email was a privacy breach?
Was the disclosure permitted? It's probably a security incident, but a breach, I don't know.
So you're saying I shouldn't presume the email was a breach?
It's not a breach if you demonstrate low probability PHI was compromised. Since the pharmacy is in the hospital, you are a workforce member. I assume you accessed the spreadsheet in good faith, right? And you haven't sent the email to anyone else.
That's right.
I would call it a security incident, not a breach. You should talk to the hospital privacy officer.
Would it be okay for me to discuss the bike fiesta with patients?
There's nothing wrong with answering questions about the poster, but individuals have the right to be left alone. I suggest you talk to the hospital privacy officer and ask for more guidelines.
Thanks, Pete.
Sometimes breach is obvious, but other times you may have to do the analysis. Once a breach is presumed, you have to determine the overall probability that PHI has been compromised. Thanks for joining me in this tutorial. Now I want you to meet my colleagues, Roman Diaz, President of Touchstone Compliance, and Karen Darnall of Darnall Law Office.
We made these tutorials to help you learn about HIPAA and California law. For individual attention, go to our contact page. You can send us a message or schedule a consultation.
And I'm Roman Diaz, President of Touchstone Compliance. Our online tools and expert services provide everything you need to successfully address HIPAA compliance. We identify vulnerabilities, provide a thorough risk analysis, and assist with mitigation plans, policies and procedures, and staff training.
So I'll just speak from over here. But I will,